Sienna God, hello all. Oshta Sahiya, good evening. Wado, thank you for watching. So this is day 17, part B of reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. An Inquiry into Values by Robert M. Persig. The first is stuckness, a mental stuckness that accompanies the physical stuckness of whatever it is you're working on. The same thing Chris was suffering from. A screw sticks, for example, on a side cover assembly. You check the manual to see if there might be any special cause for the screw to come excuse me, to come off so hard, but all it says is remove side cover plate, and that wonderful terse technical style that never tells you what you want to know. There's no earlier procedure left undone that might cause the cover screws to stick. If you're experienced, you'd probably apply a penetrating liquid and an impact driver at this point. But suppose you're inexperienced and you attach a self-locking plier wrench to the shank of your screwdriver and really twist it hard, a procedure you've had success with in the past, but which this time succeeds only in tearing the slot off the screw. Your mind was already thinking ahead of what you would do when the cover plate was off, and so it takes a little time to realize that this irritating minor annoyance of a torn screw slot isn't just irritating and minor. You're stuck, stopped, terminated. It's absolutely stopped you from fixing the motorcycle. This isn't a rare scene in science or technology. This is the commonest scene of all, just plain stuck. In traditional maintenance, this is the worst of all moments, so bad that you have avoided even thinking about it before you come to it. The book's no good to you now. Neither is scientific reason. You don't need any scientific experiments to find out what's wrong. It's obvious what's wrong. What you need is a hypothesis for how you're going to get that slotless screw out of there, and scientific method doesn't provide any of these hypotheses. It operates only after they're around. This is the zero moment of consciousness, stuck. No answer, honked, kaput. It's a miserable experience emotionally. You're losing time, you're incompetent. You don't know what you're doing. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should take the machine to a real mechanic who knows how to figure these things out. It's normal at this point for the fear-anger syndrome to take over and make you want to hammer on that side plate with a chisel to pound it off with a sledge, if necessary. You think about it, and the more you think about it, the more you're inclined to take the whole machine to a high bridge and drop it off. It's just outrageous that a tiny little slot of a screw can defeat you so totally. What you're up against is a great unknown, the void of all Western thought. You need some ideas, some hypotheses. Traditional scientific method, unfortunately, has never quite gotten around to saying exactly where to pick up more of these hypotheses. Traditional scientific method has always been, at the very best, 20/20 hindsight. It's good for seeing where you've been. It's good for testing the truth of what you think you know, but it can't tell you where you ought to go, unless where you ought to go is a continuation of where you were going in the past. Creativity, originality, inventiveness, intuition, imagination, unstuckness, in other words, are completely outside its domain. We continue down the canyon, past folds in the steep slopes where wide streams enter. We notice the river grows rapidly now as streams enlarge it. Turns in the road are less sharp here and straight stretches are longer. I move into the highest gear. Later, the trees become scarce and spindly with large areas of grass and underbrush between them. It's too hot for the jacket and sweater, so I stop at a roadside pull-off to remove them. When Chris wants to go hiking up a trail and I let him, finding a small shady spot to sit back and rest, just quiet now and meditative. A display describes a fire burn that took place here years ago. According to the information, the forest is filling in again, but it will be years before it returns to its former condition. Later, the crunch of the gravel tells me Chris is coming back down the trail. He didn't go very far. When he arrives, he says, "Let's go." We retie the pack, which has started to shift a little, and then move out onto the highway. The sweat from sitting there cools suddenly from the wind. We're still stuck on that screw, and the only way it's going to get unstuck is by abandoning further examination of the screw according to traditional scientific method. That won't work. What we have to do is examine traditional scientific method in the light of that stuck screw. We have been looking at the screw objectively, according to the doctrine of objectivity, which is integral with traditional scientific method. What we like or don't like about the screw has nothing to do with our correct thinking. We should not evaluate what we see. We should keep our mind a blank tablet, which nature fills for us, and then reason disinterestedly from the facts we observe. But when we stop and think about it disinterestedly, In terms of this stuck screw, we begin to see that this whole idea of disinterested observation is silly. Where are those facts? What are we going to observe disinterestedly? The torn slot, the immovable side cover plate, the color of the paint job, the speedometer, the sissy bar. As Poincaré would have said, there are an infinite number of facts about the motorcycle, and the right ones don't just dance up and introduce themselves. The facts, the ones we really need, are not only passive, they are damned elusive. And we're not going to just sit back and observe them. We're going to have to be in there looking for them, or we're going to be here a long time, forever. As Poincaré pointed out, there must be a subliminal choice of what facts we observe. The difference between a good mechanic and a bad one, like the difference between a good mathematician and a bad one, is precisely this ability to select the good facts from the bad ones on the basis of quality. He has to care. This is an ability about which formal traditional scientific method has nothing to say. It's long past time to take a closer look at this qualitative pre-selection of facts, which has seemed so scrupulously ignored by those who make so much of these facts after they are observed. I think that it will be found that a formal acknowledgement of the role of quality in the scientific process doesn't destroy the empirical vision at all. It expands it, strengthens it, and brings it far closer to actual scientific practice. I think the basic fault that underlies the problem of stuckness is traditional rationality's insistence upon objectivity, a doctrine that there is a divided reality of subject and object. For true science to take place, these must be rigidly separate from each other. You are the mechanic. There is the motorcycle. You are forever apart from one another. You do this to it. You do that to it. These will be the results. This eternally dualistic subject-object way of approaching the motorcycle sounds right to us because we're used to it. But it's not right. It's always been an artificial interpretation superimposed on reality. It's never been reality itself. When this duality is completely accepted, a certain non-divided relationship between the mechanic and motorcycle, a craftsman-like feeling for the work, is destroyed. When traditional rationality divides the world into subjects and objects, it shuts out quality. And when you're really stuck, it's quality, not any subjects or objects that tells you where you ought to go. By returning our attention to quality, it is hoped that when we get technological work out of the non-caring subject-object dualism and back into craftsman-like self-involved reality again, which will reveal to us the facts we need when we are stuck. In my mind now is an image of a huge, long railroad train, one of those 120 boxcar jobs that cross the prairies all the time with lumber and vegetables going east and with automobiles and other manufactured goods going west. I want to call this railroad train knowledge and subdivide it into two parts, classic knowledge and romantic knowledge. In terms of the analogy, classic knowledge, the knowledge taught by the Church of Reason, is the engine and all the boxcars, all of them and everything that's in them. If you subdivide the train into parts, you will find no romantic knowledge anywhere. And unless you're careful, it's easy to make the presumption that's all the train there is. This isn't because romantic knowledge is non-existent or even unimportant. It's just that so far, the definition of this train is static and purposeless. This was what I was trying to get back at in South Dakota when I talked about two whole dimensions of existence. It's two whole ways of looking at the train. Romantic quality in terms of this analogy isn't any part of the train. It's the leading edge of the engine, a two-dimensional surface of non-real significance unless you understand that the train isn't a static entity at all. A train really isn't a train if it can't go anywhere. In the process of examining the train and subdividing it into parts, we've inadvertently stopped it, so that it really isn't a train we are examining. That's why we get stuck. The real train of knowledge isn't a static entity that can be stopped and subdivided. It's always going somewhere on a track called quality. And that engine and all those 120 boxcars are never going anywhere except where the track of quality takes them. And romantic quality, the leading edge of the engine, takes them along that track. Romantic quality is the cutting edge of experience. It's the leading edge of the train of knowledge that keeps the whole train on the track. Traditional knowledge is only the collective memory of where that leading edge has been. At the leading edge, there are no subjects, no objects, only the track of quality ahead. And if you have no formal way of evaluating, no way of acknowledging this quality, then the entire train has no way of knowing where to go. You don't have pure reason. You have pure confusion. The leading edge is where absolutely all the action is. The leading edge contains all the infinite possibilities of the future. It contains all the history of the past. Where else could they be contained? The past cannot remember the past. The future can't generate the future. The cutting edge of this instant right here now is always nothing less than the totality of everything there is. Value, the leading edge of reality, is no longer an irrelevant offshoot of structure. Value is the predecessor, of structure. It's a pre-intellectual awareness that gives rise to it. Our structured reality is pre-selected on the basis of value. And really, to understand structured reality requires an understanding of the value source from which it's derived. One's rational understanding of a motorcycle is therefore modified from the minute to minute as one works on it and sees that a new and different rational understanding has more quality. One doesn't cling to old sticky ideas because one has an immediate rational basis for rejecting them. Reality isn't static anymore. It's not a set of ideas you have to either fight or resign yourself to. It's made up, in part, of ideas that are expected to grow as you grow, and as we all grow, century after century. With quality as a central undefined term, reality is in its essential nature not static but dynamic. And when you really understand dynamic reality, you never get stuck. It has forms, but the forms are capable of change. To put it in more concrete terms, if you want to build a factory or fix a motorcycle or set a nation right without getting stuck, then classical structured dualistic subject-object knowledge, although necessary, isn't enough. You have to have some feeling for the quality of the work. You have to have a sense of what's good. That is what carries you forward. This sense isn't just something you're born with. Although you are born with it, it's also something you can develop. It's not just intuition, not just unexplainable skill or talent. It's a direct result of contact with basic reality. Quality with dualistic reason has in the past tended to conceal. And it all sounds so far out and esoteric when it's put like that. It comes as a shock to discover that it is one of the most homespun, down-to-earth views of reality you can have. Harry Truman, of all people, comes to mind when he said concerning his administration's programs, "We'll just try them, and if they don't work, why then we'll just try something else." That may not be an exact quote, but it's close. The reality of the American government isn't static, he said. It's dynamic. If you don't like it, we'll get something better. The American government isn't going to get stuck on any set of fancy doctrine ideas. The key word is better quality. Some may argue that the underlying form of an American government is stuck, is incapable of change in response to quality, but that argument is not to the point. The point is that the president and everyone else, from the wildest radical to the wildest reactionary, agree that the government should change in response to quality, even if it doesn't. Phaedrus's concept of changing quality as reality, a reality so omnipotent that whole governments must change to keep up with it, is something that, in a wordless way, we have always unanimously believed in all along. And what Harry Truman said really was nothing different from the practical, pragmatic attitude of a laboratory scientist or any engineer or any mechanic when he's not thinking objectively in the course of his daily work. I keep talking wild theory, but it keeps somehow coming off. Excuse me. I'm going to read it again because I messed it up. I keep talking wild theory, but it keeps somehow coming out stuff. What? And this is what it says. I keep talking wild theory, but it keeps somehow coming out stuff everybody knows. Folklore. This quality, this feeling for the work is something known in every shop. Now, finally, let's get back to that screw. Let's consider a reevaluation of the situation in which we assume that the stuckness now occurring, the zero of consciousness, isn't the worst of all possible situations, but the best possible situation you could be in. After all, it's exactly the stuckness that Zen Buddhists go to so much trouble to induce through koans, K-O-A-N-S, deep breathing, sitting still, and the like. Your mind is empty. You have a hollow, flexible attitude of beginner's mind. You're right at the front end of the train of knowledge, at the track of reality itself. Consider for a change that this is a moment to be not feared but cultivated. If your mind is truly profoundly stuck, then you may be much better off than when it was loaded with ideas. The solution to the problem often at first seems unimportant or undesirable, but the state of stuckness allows it, in time, to assume its true importance. It seems small because your previous rigid evaluation, which led to the stuckness, made it small. But now consider the fact that no matter how hard you try to hang on to it, the stuckness is bound to disappear. Your mind will naturally and freely move toward a solution. Unless you are a real master of staying stuck, you can't prevent this. The fear of stuckness is needless because the longer you stay stuck, the more you see the quality reality that gets you unstuck every time. What's really been getting you stuck is the running from the stuckness through the cars of your train of knowledge, looking for a solution that is out in front of the train. Stuckness shouldn't be avoided. It's the psychic predecessor of all real understanding. An egoless acceptance of stuckness is a key to an understanding of all quality. In mechanical work, as in other endeavors, it's this understanding of quality as revealed by stuckness which so often makes self-taught mechanics so superior to institute-trained men who have learned how to handle everything except a new situation. Normally, screws are so cheap and small and simple you think of them as unimportant, but now, as your quality awareness becomes stronger, you realize that this one individual particular screw is neither cheap nor small nor unimportant. Right now, the screw is worth exactly the selling price of the whole motorcycle, because the motorcycle is actually valueless until you get the screw out. With this revelation of the screw comes a willingness to expand your knowledge of it. With the expansion of the knowledge, I would guess, would come a reevaluation. I think I said revelation. So I said it's with this reevaluation of the screw comes a willingness to expand your knowledge of it. With the expansion of the knowledge, I would guess would come a reevaluation of what the screw really is. If you concentrate on it, think about it, stay stuck on it for a long enough time, I guess that in time you will come to see that the screw is less and less an object typical of a class and more an object unique in itself. Then with more concentration, you will begin to see the screw as not even an object at all, but as a collection of functions. Your stuckness is gradually eliminating patterns of traditional reason. In the past, when you separated subject and object from one another in a permanent way, your thinking about them got very rigid. You formed a class called screw that seemed to be inviolable, inviolable, and more real than the reality you're looking at. And you couldn't think of how to get unstuck because you couldn't think of anything new because you couldn't see anything new. Now, in getting that screw out, you aren't interested in what it is, or what it is, I should say. What it is has ceased to be a category of thought and is continuing direct experience. It's not in the boxcars anymore. It's out in front and capable of change. You're interested in what it does and why it's doing it. You will ask functional questions. Associated with your questions will be a subliminal quality discrimination, identical to the quality discrimination that led Poincaré to the fusion equations. What your actual solution is unimportant as long as it has quality. Thoughts about the screw are combined rigidness and adhesiveness, and about its special helical, HELICAL, interlock might lead naturally to solutions or impaction and use of solvents. That is one kind of quality track. Another track may be to go to the library and look through a catalog of mechanics tools in which you might come across a screw extractor that would do the job, or to call a friend who knows something about mechanical work, or just drill the screw out, or just burn it out with a torch. Or you might just, as a result of your meditative attention to the screw, come up with some new way of extracting it that has never been thought of before, and that beats all the rest and is patentable and makes you a millionaire 5 years from now, right? There's no predicting what's going on that quality track. The solutions all are simple after you have arrived at them, but they're simple only when you know already what they are. Highway 13 follows another branch of our river, but now it goes upstream past old sawmill towns and sleepy scenery. Sometimes when you switch from a federal to a state highway, it seems like you drop back like this in time. Pretty mountains, pretty river, bumpy but pleasant, tar road, old buildings, old people on a front porch. We'll leave it there. Dod go hay, you mean a good chance to meet again. Love you, mean it.